Hello, vinyl community. This is Mike with TCAT's Deep Vinyl Tracks. Today we're going to do a deep dive into another King Crimson studio album. This one is their 9th album called Discipline, and it was released on September 22nd, 1981. So after their long hiatus, King Crimson, went out and all the different members did different things, but basically at the same time their music was still developing. And that was one of the main reasons why the last video I did, I decided to go ahead and do it, so you could see how the music developed from 1975 when they released Red until 1981 when they released Discipline. Some people think there's quite a wide gap between the types of music there, and that the new King Crimson was doing a style that was not their own, sounded completely different from them. But if you were actually following Robert Fripp and Bill Bruford and picked up on their new members, Adrian Belew and Tony Levin, you would understand where the sound is actually just a continuance of what they were doing. There's also the fact that what's the point of going back to a sound you had before? What King Crimson was doing was making progressive rock. And by progressive, you don't mean being stagnant. The whole idea between progressive is moving on and developing new things, experimenting with new sounds. And, even in their earlier years, King Crimson did a lot of experimentation. Their music was always way ahead of the curve, way ahead of everybody else. And, that's what they would continue to do. That's what Robert Fripp does. He doesn't sit and rest on one particular style of music. He continues developing that music, and the people that he brings into the King Crimson realm, have to be able to do the same thing. I mean, when it comes down to it, King Crimson is mostly Robert Fripp's. So, anyway, we have our new lineup from what we had with Red. Basically, John Wetton was the only member who left, since Robert Fripp and Bill Bruford come back for this new incarnation of King Crimson. They brought back two new people. Adrian Belew, that was Robert Fripp's, was the one that brought him in through his activity that he did with Talking Heads, and Adrian Belew, same thing. And Tony Levin Bill Bruford brought in Tony Levin, who he had worked with in the past also. So together they formed the new King Crimson. Originally, of course, the band was going to be called Discipline. I went over that before in the previous video, so I don't want to go into too much detail about that. So, the new album, Discipline, they kept the name of what the band was going to be and put it on the album, and decided to keep the name King Crimson. And this is what the new album looks like. This thing in the middle is called the Celtic Knot, and this Celtic Knot is the one they used to put on the cover. The back is pretty plain. It has the members, track listing, and the usual credits. So not much to look at there, but it's still quite an attractive cover. It's very eye-catching, and the color red, of course, has a lot to do with that. So this Celtic Knot, apparently they thought it was something that anybody could use, but there was a trademark that coincided with that, and they used that basically, I don't know if you'd say illegally, but they used it without permission. So Robert Fripp had to go out and commission somebody to do a variation of that for their future albums. For their future reissues of that. So everything from the 30th anniversary reissue, and beyond have used a new illustration. It's kind of hard to tell, but here's the 30th anniversary edition on CD, and that's the new knot. Looks kind of the same, but when you put them side by side and really look at them, you can see there is a difference in the two. And this is the one they would use for all subsequent releases, re-releases, and it would also be the one they would use for their logo for their new record label that they would use. This particular original was released on the Warner Brothers label. So there you have that. And the anniversary edition looks like this on the inside. Comes with the booklet. All the 30th anniversary editions have booklets with both the record and with the CD, and most they have like newspaper clippings inside to kind of tell the story between each album, what's going on in the making of each album, and they use these to kind of narrate their history, which is interesting. The new sound and Discipline does sound quite a bit different from Red if you make the jump like most people do. But if you've looked in some of the solo albums that were released between the albums, you can see how it all evolved quite smoothly. Their new music, however, would have quite a huge influence on a new movement that would come out a few years later called math rock, and a lot of the aspects that math rock is based on is inspired by this album. It was a new sound for them compared to Red. What King Crimson was doing was showing they're not going to keep making the same kind of music, especially when you've had punk and disco and everything else come in and kind of push progressive rock out of the way. Instead of trying to become like every other band out there, though, King Crimson took that, updated it, and experimented with it and pushed it forward. So what contributes to this new sound? Well, Robert Fripp has some really complex and picked arpeggios. Ballou brings in an arsenal of guitar noises, and uses some experimental things, and puts that into the music. Levin uses his bass and Chapman stick. Chapman stick gives it kind of a slapping sound when you play the bass, and you can hear that in this new music. Kind of gives it a funky feel. And Bill Bruford uses less acoustic kits, starts using more electronic drum kits, a lot more cymbal in his music, in the way he plays. And the tracks are also becoming more shorter in length. There's a lot less improvisation, at least on Discipline, though there is some there, so don't get me wrong with that. And like I said, instead of trying to sound like everybody else, they move the sound forward. I think that's a good way to put it. Every track on Discipline is credited to all four members. Every one of them have equal input as far as the track listing is concerned, as far as the credits are concerned. So we got 7 tracks on this particular album, and the total timing on it is just over 38 minutes. It starts off with track 1, which is called Elephant Talk. Elephant Talk is 4 minutes and 43 seconds long. So right away we see we're down to kind of a standard time as far as, the length of each track. The whole issue behind Elephant Talk is sometimes people talk too much, and Elephant Talk is kind of considered like meaningless chatter. The verses are interesting because they use different synonyms for the word for talking. And they start with the letter A, move through some of those, B, C, D, and end with E when they reach the word elephant. And they, Adrian Belew calls that elephant talk. In between, it's kind of a whimsical nature to it. At least that's what I get from it. There's a lot of cool sound effects, which, you get right away on this first track from Adrian Belew. You get these cool elephant guitar effects, and they use a guitar synthesizer to create a kind of a cool screeching noise during the instrumental break, the first instrumental break anyway. There's really a really nice bass line. Like I said, the Chapman stick and Tony Levin's treatment gives it a real nice funky sound. Instantly, this sounds like it's been updated, a new kind of sound from what we've been used to in the past.
Talk, it's only talk, babble, burble, banter, bicker, boo-ha-ha, balderdash, ballyhoo, it's only talk, back talk.
Track number 2 is Frame by Frame, and it has a duration of 5 minutes and 9 seconds. Basically, the subject is an individual that has been expressing doubt after analyzing a certain situation quite in depth, and they're kind of having doubts about what they've been, what they come up with as far as analyzing this. It features a fast-moving guitar line. It runs along while a strumming pattern with the other guitar plays, kind of almost counteract each other. This fast-running guitar line will be quite indicative of a lot of their music for the next couple of albums. Kind of gives it to me, you wouldn't really call it industrial music, though it does inspire industrial. But it kind of gives you a feeling of automation, of a machine, a well-oiled machine moving along and all the parts moving together to create something wonderful. This particular song, Frame by Frame, has that. It has a lot of fast drumming after a minute, and then it slows down when the vocal section comes in. The guitar part on it is 7/8. But the other guitar part is 6/8, and these things kind of counteract each other, giving a real unique sound. It's 157 beats per minute, so that shows you it's quite high energy track, very fast moving. Track number 3 is Mate Kudasai. That's Japanese for please wait. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but it's something like that. It's 3 minutes and 47 seconds. This is kind of like King Crimson's ballad for the album. It's a song about a woman that has been waiting, staring off into the night. It's beautiful, has a more sustained sound with Belew playing a very nice guitar, just smoothly running along, while Fripp uses a more conventional accompaniment. Nothing fancy or anything, it's just lovely. There's also a nice bass sequence that's reminiscent of a slow boogie, I don't know, hard to explain it any other way, but it has that pattern. So it sounds really nice.
So long, long, like the notes I'm sending. She waits in the air, mate kudasai. She sleeps in a chair in her sad America.
Track number 4 is Indiscipline, and it's 4 minutes and 33 seconds. Here, the lyrics come from a letter that was written by Margaret Ballou. She was explaining what it was like to finish one of her sculptures and how she felt about it. Is there a sculpture or a painting? And the heavy sound of King Crimson returns with this one. It's a very complex rhythm and has contrasting guitar parts on it. Adrian Ballou's part is more of a spoken word than it is singing voice, and the guitar parts become quieter when Adrian Ballou starts his spoken word, and the main guitar theme will return after those each spoken verse is finished. And that completes side 1.
Days playing little games, like not looking at it for a whole day, and then looking at it to see if I still liked it. I did!
So side 2 starts with track number 5, Thila Hut Jinjeet, 6 minutes and 26 seconds. So the second side consists of songs that are a little bit longer, but still, keeping it below the long double-digit timings that they had in the past. Thila Hut Jinjeet is actually an anagram for Heat in the Jungle. The story behind this one was Ballou was recording street sounds in London, and he wanted to get kind of a chaotic feel to what the street sounded like and the noises and all that stuff. And while he was doing this with a portable recorder, he got accosted by a street gang. And when he got back to the studio, he wanted to tell the band members what happened. So Robert Fripp turned on a recorder himself and recorded Adrian Ballou talking about his experience and what happened to him, and that's where you get the spoken word part for this particular track. This really works well, giving the true paranoia, which seems to be the theme behind this particular song. Again, the band works well together to portray the industrial feel of the music. So many moving parts in a well-oiled machine. That's exactly what it reminds me of, and I love it. I just love this new sound. The band is playing in 4/4 time, so a basic sound, but Fripp is playing his guitar in a 7/8 meter, which gives it that very chaotic, haphazard sound that you get with it. But the atmosphere of the song is exactly what this is calling for. So great song.
those guys were gonna kill me for sure. They ganged up on me like that. Couldn't believe it. I mean, look, I'm still shaking. It's weird. Go out in the streets like this.
Track number 6 is called The Sheltering Sky, and actually this is the first instrumental on this album, and it's also the longest track at 8 minutes and 22 seconds. The song itself is inspired by Beat Poets. It's taken from, it's also the name of the novel of the same name by Beat Generation author Paul Bowles. They use an interesting guitar synthesizer sound that plays the melody at the beginning and the end of the song, and in the middle is more of kind of an improvisation using that synthesizer sound. Again, another very unique feel to this one. It slows things down a bit compared to the tracks around it, and there's kind of an ambient background going on. Norman's coming in to say hello. Hello, Norman. Yes, we got your close-up. Thank you. But again, there's a repeating counter melody that goes along in the background, with the main theme returning at the end again. Interesting sound. Again, it doesn't really... It fits in with the entire album. It makes sense with the album, but it's also a varied sound from the fast, chaotic, and running sound of the rest of the album. Moving on to track number 7. This is the last track on the album. It is the title track, Discipline, and the timing on it is 5 minutes and 12 seconds. It's also instrumental. Discipline comes from the fact that this track is very complex and fast, and everybody works their own little parts to all come together. Now, it must take a lot of discipline. That's the reasoning behind this song, to be able to have a song like this where no particular instrument stands out, but each one of them is important in the entire fabric of the song. You got counter melodies coming from 2 guitar parts. They repeat in various forms throughout the track, and this gives it, the whole entire track, a very nice hypnotic effect. This track is probably one of the most influential in the math rock movement that would come along, and you can really hear it in this particular track, the way it all works. You got different sequences of time signatures that change throughout the entire track, and all members change along with this cycle of time signatures. Imagine how hard, and there are a lot of time signatures in there, how hard it would be to keep up with all of that and remember what's going on with everybody else. So yes, discipline. It takes a lot of discipline to do this. issues from the 30th anniversary on, a bonus track was added, and this is an extended version of Mate Kudasai at 3 minutes and 50 seconds. It's a little bit longer, maybe a half a minute longer, and the difference between it and the original is actually not an original, but an edit of this one. They took out the guitar part that Robert Fripp had added into this, kind of a guitar solo. And so the 30th and 35th anniversary reissues had this extra track put in there. And everything reissued after that fact has the longer version that in is track number 2, and the original edited version of Mate Kudasai is taken off the album altogether. So and it works quite well. I think it was smart to put that on there because it just adds to the song to have that particular part in there. So that takes care of that particular album, Discipline. Another King Crimson album, one that I think is well worth getting and highly recommended to see what they would kind of consider at the time post-progressive music would sound like. Again, a very influential album. A lot of bands have said how much influence this album has had on the future of music at that point, especially music in the 90s even. And interesting thing about this would be the first time that the entire 4-person lineup would move on to the next album. All 4 members would remain the same. So there we go. That does it for this album. Thank you for watching, and we will talk to you all later.